The first step's the hardest part. You and I are big fans of physics and the law of inertia. And an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion. So, how do we get from rest to motion? What's cool, and a lot of people talk about this, a lot of coaches, a lot of speakers, they talk about the law of inertia, but not a lot of people talk about this other part. And it's that if you visualize like a ball at the top of the hill, and it's sitting at the top of the hill, it's at rest. And they talk about the rest and they talk about the motion, but they don't talk about the word potential.
Welcome to the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast, where you master your mind and coach your own comeback. You are the hero, you are the guide, and you will learn to architect your life from the inside. I'm your host, Britannia Stowe, joined by my sister and co-host, Annika Wilder. Enjoy the show.
Okay, so we talked all about failure by commission, and it was so good. It was such a good conversation, and this one might be shorter because we already covered a lot of ground. But what do you think of failure by omission? What is the difference between omission and commission?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, failure by commission is doing something that causes failure. So then the other hand, the other side of the coin is failure by omission, which is what are you not doing that causes you to fail? A great example is failing to speak up, failing to follow through, and omitting the truth. We talked a lot about lying on the last episode. And so omitting the truth is also an example of failing by omission. And when I say omitting the truth, I don't just mean with another person, but I also mean not being honest with yourself.
Okay. So you identified what are failure by omission, but what causes somebody to not do something that causes a failure? Like why would someone hold their tongue? Why would someone fail to follow up or omit truth or fail to be honest with themselves? What is the root of that?
Yeah, good. So much here. Let me ask you, Annika, have you ever failed to speak up?
Oh yeah. Okay, so my name's pronounced Annika, and I usually correct people all the time when they say Annika because I do have a preference that it's Annika. That's what my mom calls me. It's Annika. It's not Annika. And I have a client who's been calling me Annika for like a year.
Oh no.
And I, it's to the point where it's just too late. And I failed to speak up right from the beginning because I was worried. I was worried how they would react. So I guess it came from fear that they would be like, "Oh, she's correcting me on her name." I don't know why, because I correct people all the time, but for some reason in this instance, in some other instances, sometimes I just don't feel like correcting people. And so now I'm to the point where I call my friend. I'm like, "Hey, so and so is going to call you. Make sure you use my name a lot so that they know it's Annika, not Annika." Now I'm using other people to make up for my mistake because I was too darn scared to just speak up and say, "Oh, by the way, it's actually pronounced Annika."
Yeah, that's funny. I will say that it's not too late. Let me just put that out there. I think it would be a really cute moment if you chose to bring up with this client that I have to tell you something so funny that you have been saying my name incorrectly for a whole year and I have never corrected you. And just saying it with a smile and with a laugh in your voice, I think would make it less awkward. But yes, not speaking up because of fear. That is a great example. And I think there's a lot of things we do out of fear. Fear is not the only one, though. I think there's also a lack of clarity. I know that this has been a struggle of mine of not having, all the steps lined out. A lot of people are afraid to take a step if they don't know where the road leads. And it's really important to know that you don't have to have your entire journey mapped out for you to take the first step. So, fear, lack of clarity. I would also say that avoidance is another reason. And reason why people avoid is because they want to be perfect, because they have this idea that if they do something perfectly, that they are perfect. right? They have such an emotional attachment to the things they do, and they identify with each outcome. So if the outcome is not perfect, then they are not perfect. And if they are not perfect, then they are imperfect. And that quickly becomes, I'm not good enough, and I'm not capable enough, and I am not enough overall.
Okay. So the belief, so there's fear, and then there's a belief of just not feeling enough, which prevents people. And then you said something else. So the lack of clarity. And so tell me a little bit more about the lack of clarity. Why would that give someone the cause to omit an action?
Yeah, this is a good one. So when we need clarity, we need to take time to reflect, to brainstorm, to visualize. And often these softer actions, I call them a soft action because you don't see an immediate result afterwards. So when you have this soft action that needs to take place first, like reflection or visualization or brainstorming, we identify that as inactivity because we are in a day and age where we need a quick result. Our attention spans are only so big. And so, if we're not going to get an immediate result, we may decide, I don't actually know if I have time to think about that. And I'm going to need a whole day, or else I won't actually, get the time that I need to gain clarity. So, we're just going to put it aside. When really you could take 20 minutes of unbothered, uninterrupted time to just ruminate, to just think about the thing that you've been putting off. And it's okay. There are some big moves in our life, like getting married or buying a house or getting a new job, where you don't want to take action right away. But sitting in inaction is not going to serve you either. So, knowing that gaining clarity and doing a soft action, like meditating on what the next move possibly could be, or visualizing the outcome, the desired outcome, will help keep you safe and not stuck in lack of clarity.
I love that. Do you think that people regret failure by omission more than failure by commission? Like failing the things they didn't do versus failure of the things they did do?
That is such a good question. Yes, I do. I absolutely do. I feel like more people will look back on their life and think of the things they didn't do and ask, why didn't I do it? Why didn't I just try? Instead of looking back and regretting the things they actually did. And, we talked about in the last episode, about reframing. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life and had a lot of failures and a lot of missteps. But most of them I don't deem as, the big F, big failures, because I've been able to learn and grow from them. But what I can't do is learn and grow from something I haven't done.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, how could you? How could you learn from something that never even happened? So it's better to try and fail than to not try at all.
Absolutely.
I love this. Well, and I had a quote too that I mean Mark Twain agrees with us that 20 years from now you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So, I mean, and Mark Twain is, an author that I think everybody knows. I don't know. It's a
I,
popular
I
name.
think so. Maybe the younger generation might. I would hope.
Yeah. And I think it's actually his pen name, but that's a story for another day. And then Wayne Dyer said, don't die with your music still in you.
Mm.
What do you think about that?
Oh gosh. It makes me, want to cry, actually. I believe that we have gifts and talents that we have been given to share. And if you keep them inside yourself, then you are unable to make the world a better place. And I think each of us, on some level, want to leave a contribution, want to make the world a better place. And I think a lot of us get stuck in lack of clarity and fear and avoidance by perfectionism, and do not move forward and keep our music inside. Just like starting this podcast, we are not going to do it perfectly. And we're going to make some mistakes and we're going to learn along the way. But if we don't take the first step, if we don't take action, then think of all the people who aren't being helped. Think of the message that is not being shared. And, Annika, if you look back on your life and you imagine a time where you needed guidance and you needed help, don't you wish someone just spoke up and shared their music?
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of like when women go through postpartum depression, it's actually very common, but a lot of people wouldn't talk about it because of fear of how they would be perceived, fear of losing friends. It all comes from fear. They would, and I wouldn't say this is a failure, but a lot of women are afraid to speak up about their struggles after having a baby. And I had postpartum depression really bad, and I totally didn't speak up to very many people. I spoke up to my support system, but they didn't fully understand everything I was going through. What I should have done was go to like a support group with women who actually understand. And I actually did go to a group like a couple times, and it was so freeing to hear other women struggling with the same thing. The ones that were not afraid to speak up made me feel more comfortable for realizing, oh, I'm not crazy. This is normal for feeling this way. And so if you have something to share, whatever it is, good, bad, hard, heavy, whatever, that it could help somebody else, then yeah, don't keep that music inside, because that could be the very thing that impacts the world. And that's the very thing that the world needs. And you never know who needs to hear it. And so you're making the world a better place by speaking up.
Thank you, Annika, for sharing that. That brings us to our self-coaching segment. And you said, if you have something to say, just speak up. So let me ask you, what do you think is one action that we can help people do to encourage them to move forward so that they aren't afraid to take the first step?
The first step's the hardest part. You and I are big fans of physics and the law of inertia. And an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion. So how do we get from rest to motion? What's cool, and a lot of people talk about this, a lot of coaches, a lot of speakers, they talk about the law of inertia, but not a lot of people talk about this other part. And it's that if you visualize like a ball at the top of the hill, and it's sitting at the top of the hill, it's at rest. And they talk about the rest and they talk about the motion, but they don't talk about the word potential. In physics, a ball sitting at the top of the hill has potential, a potential to roll down the hill, a potential to gain momentum, a potential to be in motion. And so we just have to give ourselves a little push. And it could be physically, it could be pep talks, it could be talking to people that are going through the same thing and getting insights. It could be listening to podcasts. Could be listening to music. It could be Mel Robbins, 5-second rule. Just start, but first recognize that you have potential. You're sitting at the top of the hill. You're not just at rest. You're not just stuck. You are someone that has potential. And then do something to help push you, and then that will get the ball rolling. And once you're rolling, you're good.
I could not have said that better myself. This has been another episode of the Be Your Own Life Coach podcast. If you found value in today's conversation, subscribe and share the love. And remember the teachings of Lao Tzu. When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Until next time, trust yourself, take the wisdom, take the breath, and take the next step.